Hello, everyone. My name is Serilda Summers-McGee, and I'm the founder and CEO of Workplace Change, a human resources firm located in Portland, Oregon. Today, we have a special guest joining us today, Madison Cario. Madison is the executive director of RACC, Regional Arts and Culture Council. And I'm excited for Madison to join us for the pandemic edition of Word on the Street because RACC is doing some fantastic things for the arts community during this global crisis. And so to begin, I just want to start by thanking Madison for joining us today. Welcome, Madison.
Thank you, Serilda. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah.
So, Madison, you and I have been talking for weeks now about the current state of the world. And through our conversations, I was just like, there were a lot of aha moments that I had of like, whoa, I never thought of it that way. Or everybody needs to think about what's possible in these ways. And so before we jump into basically sharing our personal conversations that we have, personal professional conversations that we have about workplace and culture and people and the current state of the crisis, I'd like for you to share with folks what RACC is and what your role is in RACC.
You bet. So, well, what is RACC? At its core, RACC is a service organization, and we do three main things. We do grant making for arts and culture, individuals and organizations. We take care of the amazing public art collection that the city has, over 2,200 pieces, and we also work in arts education. So we work in the school district, making sure that students who receive AEAF funding, that's that arts tax, which we could talk a little bit about later,
Right.
get arts education in a meaningful and equitable way. The magic of RACC is how we do the work that we do. What we do is important, but how we do it is even more important because we do it with care, with love, with intentionality, and with equity.
That's right.
That's right.
Right on. So the way that you define arts is incredibly different than I'd ever imagined it in the past. You actually, the way you define it, I actually saw myself as an artist, perhaps. So how do you see, what is an artist? What does today's artist look like?
Well, that's a great question. We usually leave that up to the artist to decide. So I like to think about our definition of arts like sports. So, you have your professional sports, you have hobbyists, you have folks who consider themselves sports fans. They just sit and watch. So we got all these different varieties of sports. Same thing with art. So whether you're a tattoo artist or you're a creative tech or you're in film or media, arts is changing, and what we consider art is changing. So we try to actually step back, stay out of the way, and let folks come to us and decide what title they want to take.
Okay, so when we were talking the last time, you said an Uber driver is an artist. You said people who have their own businesses, their own companies, who kind of created something from nothing are artists. How do you see them as being artists?
They're creative entrepreneurs. They are taking principles that are in the arts, interdependence, discovering who your market is, and selling and delivering these things. So there's an art form to it. So if you look at the Uber drivers that have they kind of like have a fan base. There's certain Uber drivers who are always busy, where you find that you get the same Uber driver over and over again. Now the app is set up so you can't see who you're picking up, but there's some smartness and some storytelling. I'll tell you a story about some of the Uber drivers I've had in Portland, because I always ask them if they're an artist, and they go, oh, no. Because, what do you do? That's what we ask people when we get in the car. But if you leave them alone for 5 or 10 minutes, you get into this story. So I'll share one story. A young man was driving. He's like, no, I don't do art. But he started telling me the story, and he got all the way back to the point where he used to write scripts and plays. But he forgot that, right? So there's some forgotten artists in us. There was another one who told me jokes, a little bit to my dismay, but for the entire ride to the airport. 45 minutes of jokes, but he's a comedian. He's like, I always wanted to do stand-up, and I've never done it. I encouraged him to get out of the car and do it, or at least record it in the car, and then put it on YouTube or something. So there's an artist within all of us if we just take a break, take a beat, and think about it.
Madison, again, like I said, when I talk to you, I always feel inspired. I always come away with this aha, something new to think about. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an artist. I'm a creative, right? I get to express myself through the magic of human resources, which doesn't feel all that creative all the time. but it is hella creative. So thank you for putting a little sparkle in my eye too. All right, so let's talk about COVID-19. Let's talk about the impact that it's having to our region, to the Portland metropolitan area specifically. What impact are you seeing it have in the creative and the arts sector and community?
Yeah, well, it's devastated the entire sector. Same as hospitality industry, sports, arts, anything that requires people to come together is a little bit on hold now.
Yeah.
What I've also seen is pivots. I've seen organizations change their missions and do new things, like the Portland Baroque Orchestra. The ED called me a couple weeks ago and she said, Madison, we haven't met yet, but I have an idea. And she proceeded to tell me how they were going to stop doing what they were doing and do live stream of local shows only. Change their mission, got approval from the board. The reason that they were able to do this was they bought the equipment out of need a couple of months earlier because, there's not a huge Baroque audience here in Portland. So they would live stream and get a much larger audience. They know how to do it, and they figured, why wouldn't we do this? So I watched this organization pivot from their art form that's still in their body, their embodied practice, but to doing something that's for us while also still serving them. So I see both devastation and innovation, and I think it's important to acknowledge and hold space for both.
Right on. So the devastation, let's pause there for a bit. Do you consider RACC to be a government, like, is it quasi-government, or you all consider yourselves to be like, just, we are a government organization? How would you define that?
We are a quasi, leaning more towards the independent side.
Okay.
Because we need to be able to move in different ways. And this is a perfect example. This is a good time to not be a bureau, right? Because we can move differently. We can move funds in a way that we are more nimble. And I think that's why RACC was created originally. RACC used to be MAC. I don't know what our name will be next, but hopefully it doesn't rhyme with RACC or MAC.
Right.
But we originally were moved out so that we could be more nimble. And part of that nimbleness has to do with advocacy and fundraising. Much of the fundraising efforts and the dollars that are out there in the world for arts and culture specifically can only go to nonprofits. Yeah. So that was really one of the pushes, literally push RACC out the door from MAC to RACC so that we could be more nimble and be more responsive. And that is the direction that we've moved in. And COVID-19 has really just, we're in warp speed. So these are the dreams. I mean, I've been here for a little over a year. I did a restructure of the organization to focus in on not just our programs and what we do, but really on this advocacy and fundraising. Yeah. Super important. New money in the door, bigger pie, not cutting the pie up differently. And boy, are we on warp speed now. So now we're getting to do all those things, but just really fast.
Really fast. That's right. So I ask about how you identify from a government standpoint, because during crisis like this, during, global community crisis like this, the government has to step in and they fortify and they support all of us in the ways in which they were intended to, right? RACC is also doing that. I would love for you to share with folks, what RACC is doing to support entrepreneurs and artists, and who it is you're partnering with to get these things off the ground.
Yeah, I'll start by saying the city is our biggest and best partner.
Yeah.
And the city, we talk about the city as if it's one thing. We all know the city is many individuals and units, and each of them have their own constituency to take care of. I got stuck on that one. And their own needs and their own funding, right? Super important. So, and they have different perspectives, and all those perspectives are important. So for what RACC is doing, I was thinking about this before we got onto the Zoom room, and I think the easiest way, it's a little bit Alice in Wonderland. I want to take you to, I'll take you to our website, artsimpactfund.racc.org. We'll put that up later. But when you scroll down a little bit on that page, you're going to see 3 links, 3 doors. On your left, there's an orange door. In the middle, there's a reddish door, and on the right, there's a turquoise door. And I'm going to start with the orange door. The orange door, when you open that door, you get to have the most exquisite experience of giving. That's where you can give to the fund that we started to support creatives. And it feels really good to give. So come push the button, go in that door, give. We will keep this fund running forever. As long as we have money, we will keep it running for individual artists and creatives. That middle button, that red button, push that button. That's an emergency button, and it's red for a reason. This is the get. If you're an artist or a creative, whether you're an audio technician or a tattoo artist or a performing artist of any kind, and you are feeling an ouch right now, which I imagine you are, push that button, apply. It's a simple application. It's one page. It's non-competitive. It's inclusive AF. And you can get up to $500 right now. Right? And we'll get the money out the door very quickly. You have until Monday, 13. Now the
Monday
button on the
13.
right.
Okay.
413. artsimpactfund.rac.org. Button in the middle. Don't forget the button on the left. Super important too. Or tell your friends to hit the button on the left and you get the button on the middle.
That's right.
You can only hit that button one time though. Okay. The button on the right, turquoise. This is about resources because there is so much out there in terms of resources for artists, for creatives, for small business, for entrepreneurs. But it's so confusing. And you can spend a lot of time digging down into a loan or an application process to find out you're not eligible. And that's frustrating. So there's a curated list of what's available, not just in funds, but also in terms of how do I apply for unemployment insurance? Where do I find this? You'll find those things there as well. That's the other role that as an advocate, RACC is playing. We want to start having office hours where if you have a question, just call. It'd be some time and somebody will answer the phone and get you an answer because there's a lot out there and it's coming at us very quickly. So come back to that page, hit the green button, turquoise, blue, depending on how you see things. The one on the right, if you're looking at the screen, and you'll see that will be updated frequently. So that's just one effort that we have that's live. It will, again, that Artist Fund, the first phase will close on Monday, I believe at 5 p.m. There'll be a phase 2 as long as people keep hitting that button over there.
That's right.
Collective impact. I want to talk a little bit about collective impact because we talk about that a lot at RACC. And this is what we've been doing. In addition to what RACC is doing, we have been gathering our partners, other arts and culture funders around the state to say, ask the question, what can we do better together that we can do apart, right? This is a big deal. I can't tell you, but we're real close. Friday, there'll be an announcement of what we have figured out we can do together for the entire state of Oregon, right? And these are for arts organizations. So I am so pleased, privileged, honored, and thrilled to be at a table with so many other funders who are thinking and caring and feeling the need to come together. And what I hope is, while the crisis is the thing that brought us together, that these conversations continue. And that we find ways to support our community. So again, we flip from this scarcity model, which we talk about a bit, like there's not enough to go around, to this model of maybe there's not enough to go around, but what can we do with what we got and how can we leverage that to get more? So that's another thing that's happening. RACC will also be announcing some funds for arts organizations who are already partners of ours. We're working on that. We're just going to keep working. We're going to keep raising money and we're going to keep working. And then the other thing that I'm really excited about is as we start talking statewide, guess what we're doing? We're breaking down barriers between rural and city. So, right, there's always been this tension. This is about the beginning of having a conversation around equity, geographic equity, access to resources. This is exciting. This is super sexy. This is something that we can sell nationally. If we figure out how to do it, we can teach other states how to get their folks together. What were the conversations? Where did we get stuck in the conversation? How do you manage your board to make sure everybody walks away happy? We want to leave the room with a win-win-win for everyone. So it's been a wild ride, but it's been amazing. So those are some of the things that we're doing. It's not enough, but the other thing that we're doing, and this is the one that I get super nerdy and excited about, one of my past lives, I was a librarian, is collecting data. I know. There's a lot of things that folks don't know about me yet, but hang out and you will. So data. So RACC did a survey just to see, get a sense of what's the loss for the field just through May. And we're talking between individuals and organizations with about 1,500 responses as of March 22nd, $47 million millions by May, with that number increasing because, you know, as spring comes in, that's when we kind of go into the upswing of galas and stuff. So the numbers are important, but what became really evident to me is the numbers of us. We got folks from 27 different counties responding to that survey. We're everywhere. And we can't, when we're not seen, right? So there's invisibility. So what we've been focusing on is working with Music Portland, working with the Film Consortium, working with the Venue Consortium. Like, how do we start collecting all the lists of all the who's we are? This is like who's in Whoville, and what happens when we start counting us all, right? You want to talk about collective impact, collective bargaining, and like some real power. What if all the fields started standing up together in this what I feel is happening is this re-emergence and revaluing of interdependence, as opposed to independence. And boy, it can't come at a better time. And I want to make sure we hold on to that post-crisis.
That's right.
That's important.
Well, when you and I spoke a few weeks ago, and this is before you had started making and establishing all of these partnerships, which I knew was going to happen, you were talking about connections, right? The ability or the opportunity, there being an opportunity for the business sector and the public sector to join forces, for the philanthropic sector and the arts sector and the public and the business sector to join forces and to wrap our arms around each other, to support each other through this crisis. You had some pretty unique and creative ideas. I mean, even from job sharing, you know, figuring out if there were additional government jobs, since government, you know, is one of the few outlets that still has monies in it during this crisis. How can we employ temporarily, short-term, employ folks, not just give them money, but also give them an opportunity to work and contribute to us healing and recovering from this pandemic. Were there any additional ideas that came to your mind on different ways for us to be able to partner?
This is a great question. I mean, what happened between when we talked and now, though, is a shelter in place, and that kind of put a kibosh on a lot of those ideas. It's kind of hard to do anything when you can't leave your house unless you're essential. So I think in the retooling of that, it's thinking about this time where we are kept apart from each other. We can spend planning for what we're going to do. So as soon as that gate is lifted, we are running and we are full throttle rebuilding. And so I think about things like I think about dance and dancers. That's an embodied practice, and it's about wayfinding. And we think about even right now in the current crisis, as you see the tents set up across New York and Louisiana, New Orleans, there is a movement score that is safer and natural for ways for your body to move in tight confined spaces that have strict protocols, right? So wouldn't it be great to employ some choreographers to help set those spaces up so you don't have to learn as you're moving, literally, which is dangerous in this case, right? So like how can we get a little bit ahead of this and use the embodiment that we have? Like, how can we have theater artists teach well, frankly, everyone how to use Zoom so that they come across as confident, right? Because a lot of folks are really struggling with this new platform, and if you don't sound confident, people aren't going to believe you, and they may not do what you're saying, right? And so I think it's real. I watched it, you know, yesterday. Right? It's like different people have different you know, ways of dealing with this platform. And then how can we invite the creative tech sector to help us? So some folks, you know, their camera, like my camera's here. Some folks, the camera's down on the keyboard. But if you're not thinking about that, you go and you start typing and we just see your fingers.
Right.
Not helpful. And so like, can we implore the tech sector, the creative tech sector, to help us hack right now so that when I'm looking at the camera, which makes you feel like I'm looking at you,
that's right.
I can still see you. Because Serilda, I can't see you right now when I look at the camera. When I look at you on my screen, then I'm not looking at you. Right? And so, right? Now that we are psychological embodied beings, and they're sending all kinds of crazy messages. That's why we're so tired by the end of the day of 8 Zoom meetings, because we're trying to get that eye connection that we're so used to, which is about equity, which is about paying attention and respect, and we can't do it. Because the system isn't built for it. The system with the camera here or there is not built for equity.
Yeah.
right? So how do we start thinking about hacking that? Where can creatives come on and be hired to do that in their own space? So part of this is about a movement score. Like I'm standing right now because I know that I deliver better standing, just like you were standing last night when you were facilitating. But yet we all like hunker down our desk by meeting number 8. We're like, ugh. So it reads and we're getting confused. The one thing I do love about this new platform is the equity that's built in. If you have a computer, that's an if, and you got Wi-Fi that's fast enough that your computer doesn't look like you're in an old Godzilla movie, you have a microphone. That was not always the case.
Yep.
In meetings, right?
Yep.
You can even chat. Even if you don't want to say anything live, you can chat and be heard. So like, I want to highlight some of these opportunities that are coming up that are helping us along our equity lines to make sure that we keep these. We recognize these for what they are, and we bring them to the forefront. Captions is one of them, right? The disability community, I mean, I can't thank them enough for everything I've ever learned about the how to value interdependence. And we need to make sure that they are part of these conversations and part of these platforms. So what's going on and on? I don't even remember what the question was, but
it was about what can we do differently? Like how can we create space for the sectors to come together? And every time you riff on that front, it is beautiful every single time, because I don't think the world thinks like you. So the last question that I have for you, and I have so many questions that I can ask you. I just love talking to you, Madison. But the last question I'm going to ask for you is, workplace change is about people and culture, right? How have you prepared over the course of your entire career for this moment in time to be a leader within this crisis?
Well, you know, I was a Marine, right, Serilda?
You were a librarian or a Marine?
Those two things help, right? I've been a lot of things. So I've also been a leader who's led through crisis. But I will say that there's 3 or 4 things that really are essential. One is, stepping in to the spot, right? That it's easy to disappear during crisis. If you're a leader, we expect you to be upfront first, always, right? Really actually leading. So that's one. Joy. This is a real important part of this. To survive any crisis is to find your joy in every day and be grounded in that. I get there through yes. I start a lot of answers and a lot of conversations with the word yes, which changes your neurochemistry. But it also starts with this we, right? So those 2 things are super important. And then the last thing I'll say is I have such a diverse background. And I think what I want to leave folks with, and I'm so glad you asked this question, is there's a diversity in me, which includes environmental science, master's degree, engineer, a door-to-door sales person. I sold Kirby vacuum cleaners. I've been homeless. There's all this stuff, right? All these hats. And we are so taught to compress and hide some of those things. And yet we need every one of those experiences, every one of those diversities in ourselves to come forward right now, and then bring that into the space and into the room. So I think if I think about anything what's prepared me to be a leader in this moment in time is every stupid job I've ever had. I was like, $10 an hour. Do you want to buy a $2,000 vacuum cleaner? No, thank you. Okay. You know, whatever it took to have to ring that doorbell. We have a lot of doorbells to ring right now, right? As a community, we say, and to be humble enough to be able to say, I need help. That's the best thing that a leader can do, is to recognize what they have and to recognize their team and empower their team and say, we need help. Yep. We need help. We can't do it alone. Interdependence. I think that's what I've learned.
Absolutely. Well, Madison, it has been my pleasure to spend some time with you. I'm so excited that we were able to meet with you before the expiration of the grants that you are providing to artists. I'm going to have a link at the bottom of this video for everyone to be able to click it and gain access to it, not only to receive, but also to give. So I'm going to make sure people are aware of all that is available through RACC and the partnerships that you've established. I'm also going to let them know to be aware of some announcement that's happening tomorrow, correct? Friday, a big announcement.
I think, that's our plan. Okay. Our plan. You know, we keep planning and the world keeps changing, so it's coming.
That's right on. Coming. So if you can send me a link to where it is to drive people to become aware of whatever's coming down the pipe. Folks need to know. People need to know and be aware of what resources are available, what services are coming their way. We talked to Kimberly Branham at Prosper Portland. She said, you know, they have gap funding, but that supports are coming from the feds. It's not there just yet. They haven't really distributed any cash yet, but they will in the interim. Our city governments and our quasi-city government outlets are taking, you know, blocking and tackling and supporting folks along the way. So Madison, I thank you so much for coming and sharing with our audience what is available to them. And I want to thank everybody for watching Word on the Street, Pandemic Edition. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time.